Good morning. It's about, I don't know, 5:20 in the morning. I can't sleep anymore. The wife's still in bed, so I can't do anything in the house that might wake her up. I posted late last night the video on proper drying of a car so you don't prevent swirls and scratches. And I mentioned that I was probably going to wax it again just because I like to, and that's just me. But the car was driven since it was washed. So odds are good there's some light dust and debris on the car. So to wax it now would be a step backward because the wax applicator pad rubbing against the paint would also rub any of that debris into the paint, causing swirls. So the car needs to be wiped down. I've also said that wiping down a car dry is a very bad idea because there's no lubrication to protect the paint against any debris that might be on there. So the safest way to do that is to use a quick detailer or a waterless wash product. What I'm going to do is use this Hybrid Solutions ceramic 3-in-1 detailer. And it's designed for safe waterless cleaning that intensifies shine and adds ceramic wax protection. I'm using it for the lubrication. That way that if there is any debris on the car, it'll be surrounded by this quick detailer and buffered and won't cause swirls. If you use this stuff too heavily, it can smear. But that's not a concern for me because I'm waxing it right afterwards, and applying and removing the wax will eliminate any swirling. The proper way to use this, at least in this case, is to fairly heavily spray it onto the car, take a clean microfiber, and gently wipe it down. You'll want to flip or refold the microfiber occasionally so you always have a clean side touching the car, again to minimize swirls and scratches. I'll give you a quick demo on the hood, shut you off, and then I'll go ahead and wax the car, and we'll talk about, is waxing by machine better than waxing by hand? I think it is, but once we get to that point, we'll talk about it a little further. So for right now, wiping the car down to remove any possible grit. Okay, I've got my clean folded microfiber cloth. Got my quick detailer. Walk over to the car in a section at a time. Just spray it on fairly heavily. I'll go ahead and do the whole hood all at once. And again, this is a no pressure deal. Just light, enough to glide across the surface. Straight lines. And I am leaving quite a bit behind. But like I said, it's irrelevant because waxing will remove any marks that the detailer makes when streaking. You'll notice I'm checking the towel after every wipe to see if there's any visible dirt and grit, and if there's a need to flip the towel. Okay, if you look, there's almost nothing on the towel. It's bright yellow. You'd see any dirt or dust built up, but there's not much. So the car's pretty clean to begin with. It might not need wiped down, but why risk it? So I'm going to go around the car, do the whole thing the same way. Then I'll bring you back and show you how to use a polisher to wax the car. Be back. Okay, I just went across the entire car. It only took a few minutes because it's very simple. And as you can see, it did leave some residue behind. Now you could take either a slightly damp, clean microfiber, buff it off and be done. But I'm not going that route. So I'm going to actually wax the car again with the machine, explaining why machine application, in my opinion, is better. Give me a few seconds to set up the machine, and I'll show you how to apply it. Okay, here's the machine again. I'm using a Lake County white polishing pad. It's a lot softer than the cutting pad that I used initially when I was doing the rub out. They do make even softer pads for applying wax, but in my experience, they are too soft and mushy and don't do as good a job as a slightly firmer pad. So I do use a polishing pad instead because of the firmness. I'm going to be using the To The Max wax again, because you don't use a spray wax with a buffer. That's best used by hand. Now, one important thing I'm going to touch on is cleaning the pads, especially with modern waxes that claim high chemical resistance. So as soon as I am done waxing the entire car with the machine, I'm going to soak it down with a cleaner that I learned how to make from Brian at Apex Detailing. It's about 3 ounces of Tide laundry detergent, 3 ounces of an all-purpose cleaner, it doesn't matter which one, in a 32-ounce bottle, and the rest of it filled with water. Now, with a polish or a compound that has no protective qualities, cleaning is easy. You hose the pad down, work it around a little bit, rinse it out, and let it dry. But with these chemical resistant sealants, I let the pad soak at least 12 hours to give the cleaner enough time to break down the protectants. Then I knead it a little bit, work it around, spray it again, work it around some more, then I rinse it. This pad that I showed you is only going to be used for applying the To The Max wax, because even though I'm cleaning it as best possible, there's a chance that there's still some of the wax left in it. And so that kind of ruined the pad for any other use. Hand pads, those microfiber covered foam pads, are a dime a dozen. They're cheap. If you need to toss one, it's no big deal. Polisher pads are not cheap, so it's in your best interest to clean and care for them as good as you can so they last you a while. I'm going to apply the wax. I use a little bit more than what they recommend, because even though they say that you barely have to have enough on there to see the wax in order for it to work, I'm still kind of old school, and I like seeing the wax on the car. I like being able to look at the car and see that, yeah, that's got a coat of wax on it. And as soon as it cures, I'll buff it off and everything's good. I'll do the hood, or half the hood, so it doesn't take too long. Show you what I mean by being able to see the wax, shut you off, do the whole car, and then I'll come around and show the removal and touch maybe on a few more subjects. Okay, I'm sure you'll notice that compared to polishing or compounding, I moved a lot faster. That's because I'm not trying to correct or do anything like that. All I'm trying to do is make sure the wax is evenly applied, thin, and I don't miss a spot. With applying wax, that's all you need to do. I turned the speed on my buffer down from a 6 that I use for compounding and correction to about a 4.5. It doesn't need to spin as fast, doesn't need to work as hard. So I'm going to go around, finish applying the wax to the rest of the car, bring you back, show you a section of removal and why it's removed the way they suggest, and explain why machine is better than hand. Okay, the entire car is waxed except for the roof and the hatchback because I'm still not sure how long my phone will stay on pause while making a video. So I will get those when I'm done removing the wax from the rest of the car. I wanted to show you a little quick tip that I picked up over the years. When using a corded electric machine, when you plug it into your extension cord, almost invariably when you're walking around and moving, the two cords separate. You got to go back to them, reconnect them, and it's a real pain. If you take a small strip of duct tape, wrap it around the two, and fold the end of it so you have a flap to make it easier to come off, the two never come apart. It's simple, it's fast, it doesn't damage anything like trying to tie the cords together, and it just works really well. Now hopefully you can see what I mean by having enough wax on the car to see it. Move you around a little bit. That is what I like to see. I may be using almost double what they recommend, but part of the beauty of using a polisher versus by hand is that because the polisher spreads it so well, you actually use less product. So I might be using too much for hand application each time I reapply it to the pad. But for machine application, since it will spread that same amount so much farther, in the end you're using less. Plus, machines don't get tired. They don't have fingers, hands, and arms that cramp up. Your arms and hands can vary their speeds, how hard they press. Everything else, a machine is consistent. Same speed, same pressure, same movement, no matter how long it takes you. Plus, you get a more even layer of wax on the car. It's just so much better. And this waxing the entire car, like I said, with the exception of the roof and hatchback, took me maybe 15 minutes. And I've got a complete coat of wax that's evenly applied and ready to remove. I prefer personally to let it sit for about an hour to let it bond a little better to the paint. But for the sake of the video, I'm giving it the 15 minutes or 20 minutes now. What I do is I start where I applied it and work around in the same direction. That way each section has the longest possible time to cure and bond to the paint. I'm going to pause you briefly, and then I'm going to come back with the damp towel, dry towel removal, and we'll be done. Okay, time to remove the wax. I've got my damp towel and my dry buffing towel. The reason Turtle Wax recommends for all their hybrid solution products to use a damp towel than a dry towel is because it makes it so easy, so quick, and it almost completely eliminates any smearing. There's almost no hard labor involved. You're just using light pressure. All you're doing is wiping, you're not rubbing. Besides, you're removing a wax. All the rubbing should have been done a long time ago. And all that's left is gentle wiping. So I'm going to do the hood, show you a quick view of after. And then I found something at the drugstore yesterday I found pretty interesting for $1. I might go back today and buy them out because they look so intriguing that they could be used for a lot of different things when it comes to detailing. So here we go. Simple wipe. And all you're doing is breaking up the layer wax that's set on the car. Section at a time is best. Like this. That way you can, more or less focus, keep an eye on what you're doing and not miss anything. Wipe it down, it's still damp. Take your dry towel, gentle wipe. You might flip the towel once in a while because the water does hinder a little bit the wax removal. You may actually have to change dry buffing towels once or twice depending on the size of the car you have. But other than that, that's it. It's that simple. I can go around this entire car, and if I had done the roof and trunk, I could take the wax off the entire car in probably 15 minutes or less without breaking a sweat. So I'm going to pick you up. And there's the after. No smears, no swirls, no nothing, just perfect paint. Over here where I didn't touch, you can see kind of how thick I like it to be. I said I use a little bit extra, a little bit more than recommended because I like to see the wax on the car. And that's all there is to it. It's beginner friendly, it's easy, and I don't know why more people aren't using it. Now, I'll give you the finger real quick while I take the camera off the tripod. And I'm going to show you what I found. I went to the drugstore yesterday and just happened to look at their as seen on TV aisle. And I found these. Clean Touch microfiber cleaning pads, 4-pack. They were $1. They're very similar to that bug scrubber sponge that I've got that I was using for glass. But I think I'm going to use these ones instead because they're smaller. They're going to take less glass cleaning solution. And being smaller and definitely square with not hard edges, but defined edges, it'll be easier to control. They could also be pretty good for applying a protectant to the interior dash and interior plastics. I've just got to play with them and find out. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and until the next time, see you later.